Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining today's webinar on scaling your growing business with automation. My name is Alex, and I'm on the marketing team here at Bullhorn. I want to cover a quick couple of housekeeping items before we begin. Today's webinar will be recorded, and you'll receive a copy of the recording within the next 24 hours. All attendees will be muted during today's presentation, but we strongly encourage you to ask questions in the question pane on the bottom of your Zoom. We'll get to as many questions as possible before the end of the session. We should wrap up in about 45 minutes. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome one of today's presenters, Toby Callahan. Toby, take it away.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm pleased to be kind of moderating this and introducing you to some of my colleagues and taking you through our webinar today. So I'm going to start with some introductions to myself. So my name's Toby Callahan. I'm Senior Sales Manager of our SMB team. So my team every day wakes up thinking about the small businesses that use Bullhorn and those that don't, and thinking about how we can provide those clients, those small business staffing agencies with the opportunity to scale using technology. So this is something that is pretty close to what I do on a daily basis, hence me attending and moderating this session. So I want to introduce you to Ben and Chris as well and let them introduce themselves.
Yep, hi everyone, Ben Carter. I'm the Sales and Strategy Director for Automation here at Bullhorn. I've been here for about 3 years now, but previous to that, I was actually a customer and I've been in the industry for 19 years almost now. So I've been on your side of the fence for a long time of that, but really excited to take you through today what automation really looks like to all of our customers, especially down in the smaller end of the customer size base, and really excited to really show you how you can really scale your business through automation. And today I'm going to be joined by Chris, who's going to be taking us through a demo afterwards as well. So Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Ben. My name is Chris Dews. I am the Sales and Strategy Director here at Fish by Bullhorn. I've been working in Bullhorn Marketplace or at Bullhorn for 10 years, specifically with a concentration automation. So Toby and Ben will be bringing you through kind of some of our common use cases, what we're seeing in the industry, and then I'll be delivering the demo. Okay. Cool.
So we've got a good mix today. We've got a Brit in the UK, we've got an American in the US, and we've got a Brit in the US. So nice mix there. Okay, so I want to start by talking about the agenda and what we're going to go through. We're going to begin with the state of the industry, and we're going to talk a little bit about why automation is important for small businesses, and then we're going to quickly get into scaling with automation with Ben. He's going to talk a little bit more about automation itself as a concept and how it can impact your business. And then Chris is going to take us through that Herefish demo before we get into some Q&A. So one of the things we did when we started to look at how Herefish could impact small businesses was we spoke to our clients, we surveyed our clients to find out, what were they thinking about? And the majority of clients were looking to implement automation in the next 12 months. The major reasons that they cited for looking at that is, within the DNA of a small business, they need to do more with less. The very nature of them being small, they have to be able to compete with the larger businesses within their sector, within their geography. And 2020 has only made that harder. We've seen a lot of people have to scale back in terms of headcount, and being able to use automation to maximize the efficiency of that team that you do have enables those businesses to compete and focus on the important items, such as the second point of maintaining relationships. Being able to make sure that with a smaller team, you're able to build on relationships and maximize those when it comes to clients or candidates is a huge reason that people that run a small business or are within a small business are looking to automate. Making sure that the people that you're investing in within your business can spend time on what they're really good at and making the most of what you've already built in terms of relationships and growing those too. I think when you combine artificial intelligence and human intelligence, you get a good collaboration, and that's really what small businesses are looking to do. Then when we look at the tech stack as a whole for a small business, we've seen a significant shift in the last 5 to 10 years in the staffing space, where your CRM, your ATS becomes a real central point and talks to all the different technologies that you may have. And managing to get an increased ROI from your tech stack can happen through automation. That happens because you are able to use automation to make sure that the data that you have within your CRM, your ATS is healthy, it's in good shape, so that the data that's flowing between the two technologies is more accurate and more usable. But you're also able to use that automation to impact not only your ATS, your CRM, but also the other technology itself and trigger events within those. So being able to be productive with the digitization and make the most of your tech stack. So those are the three reasons that we found people were looking. When we think about this year specifically, if we just focus on some unemployment numbers here, if we cast our minds back 12 months ago, I know that I was having conversations with people a lot about candidate engagement, about the shortage of candidates in the market and how they could gain a level of exclusivity to increase and charge a premium on the candidates that they do have. The year that we've had has seen a bit of a shift. And that doesn't mean candidate engagement goes away. It's still important. And this is going to be different for different sectors, how this unemployment level impacts. But being able to understand the unemployment shift and what they mean, so keeping closer now to clients, understanding when those clients are going to be hiring again, what their future plans are, and being able to act on those with automation at scale and quickly means that you can set your technology up to be much more agile to react to changes that we've already seen and that we will see going into 2021. So we talked there a little bit about how you remain competitive with automation. We've talked about how you adapt to the market with automation, but what about self-reflecting? What about being able to look at yourself and say, how can I be a better version of myself in 2021? Well, all businesses should be doing that too. And we recognized that. So we ran a study to look at Bullhorn customers that don't use Herefish and Bullhorn customers that do, to find what impact automation was having on their business. And you can see that all of these metrics are going up. We looked at whether this was going to provide people with a competitive edge, and we proved that time and time again. And I think when you're using a industry-leading solution like Bullhorn, you're always wanting to look for that gap, wanting to look for how you can make the most of the technology that you have. And I think there's two ways you can do that with Bullhorn. Through the marketplace, you can add your different technologies on, but also through automation, you can then increase that return on investment from everything that you have. So just proving out that you can be better in 2021 through automation. And proof's in the pudding, right? We saw a lot of metrics this year went down when you think about using technology, when you think about not having people in the office, but automation was consistent. In fact, it was rising. And more recently, as we started to see hiring increase globally, we've obviously still got impact of the year we've had, but we've seen hiring increase. People are putting more automation in place to get ready for that upswing, to get ready for the increase in demand. So we wanted to share a quote here from Anastasia. So Anastasia runs a small business, and Herefish has been able to enable her team to operate far beyond their size. And Chris, I want to hand over to you here. I know you know Anastasia well. You've worked with her for a long time. You're on mute, Chris.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I've worked with Anastasia for a while, and she really embraced automation, not only to really do more with less, right? Like, she has a small business, she has some high performers, but also to ensure that she's engaging her candidates and her clients on a regular basis and creating a better experience for them. She's pretty much wrapped her whole entire tech stack in automation. So when you think about how Herefish is helping small businesses, it's a great foundation to really unlock other productivities and other potential areas, not just within Bullhorn, but also your other solutions that you will be integrating. My favorite quote about this one is, "No one's real stressed around here." So I think that's the point to take here.
That's an achievement in itself after this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Over to you, Ben.
Perfect. So I'm gonna take us through just a few more slides just around what Herefish is as a product and how it can help you. Then we're going to get into the fun stuff, which is a live demonstration, and Chris can bring us home. But yeah, to just kick off, Chris, if you want to click through. So what is Herefish? Herefish is Bullhorn's automation platform that automates processes and engagement throughout the entire recruitment workflow. And off the back of that, using automation leads to consistent communication from your business, higher productivity within your organization, and a more accurate database or ATS to use along the way as well, which sounds like a win-win scenario for all of us. As we dig in further, if we really think about where automation should take place, we look at 3 pillars. So where it should really improve your business from a productivity standpoint, and we've got some examples we're going to dig into in a moment, but from a productivity standpoint, it's really around driving sales and recruiting productivity to be more engaged, have less busy work that we're working on, and making sure that everyone in your team, with the short amount of time that they have or the tight resources that they have, is being able to do as much as possible in that time and getting the most value out of their time. On the right-hand side, we have what we call experience. So that's really about driving an incredible candidate and client experience with you as a business. So that as in these emerging markets that you're in, and as you're growing as an organization and you're picking up these new clients, you need to stand out against some of these other larger companies out there. And really a way to do that is to really create an incredible experience. So we're going to show some examples. But in the core of this and in the heart of this, and this looks like an infinite loop, is healthy data. So Chris, as we move in, I'm just going to take us through a couple of examples I've highlighted. From a productivity perspective, it's really about, as I said, reducing that busy work by automating repetitive or often forgotten tasks, or it could be, in this case, with smaller organizations, these tasks lists are just too big. You can't get to it all in a day. So it's really about putting automation in place to make you more productive. So the one I've highlighted here is maybe proactively notifying an internal Bullhorn user or recruiter that a finishing placement is coming up X number of days. Sounds really simple, but actually how many people often have to react on a back foot when these placements are coming to a finish and you're scrambling to see whether you're going to be redeploying or whether you're going to be extending that person. But we can also do things like add tasks or even alert consultants when a client's dropping off the radar maybe, so from an at-risk perspective. Moving into experience, this is all around just making sure that we engage consistently as a business. So whether that's one-to-one relationship style communications like you can see on the screen. So this is more of what we call a plain text email. Feels like it's come from your Outlook or from your Gmail. But from here, we could maybe send a touch base email to a client, maybe that one that fell off the radar. So we can send that touch base email. Everything is mergeable. So you can 100% customize this and personalize this to the way you need to based on your Bullhorn data. Or even if we want to do something a bit more rich from a HTML rich perspective, then we can also send out those style communications, maybe sharing a blog article we've written, maybe even to our clients or to our candidates. So that's experience. And then at the core of everything, as I said, is data health. So you can create healthy data with automation, and then you also need healthy data for automation. So it is that infinite loop that goes on. But in this case, the one example I've highlighted here is really about using the survey platform that's in the solution to request an up-to-date CV or resume from a candidate, say every 12 months, to ensure that your talent pools are up-to-date in Bullhorn. And then there's some other things we can do with data health as well. So from an automation perspective, cheers, Chris. We can copy data from one place to another. So an example there may be a placement end date is going to become a candidate's available date back in the record. We can clear data out as well. So as and when you're growing in Bullhorn and you're adding new fields and changing fields up, well, actually you can use this platform to help clear out data that you're no longer going to use. You can also set information. So let's say, for example, we're going to go and update that candidate's finished. We've copied the available date over. Now we may actually go and set a status of available again now. We can also update that information that we capture. So using that survey technology, anything we capture in, whether that be a CV, whether it be an available date, skills, anything that may be GDPR or CCPA related, everything we're capturing, we can flow straight back. And that brings me on to consent. We can automate 100% of the consent process for both CCPA in North America and for GDPR in Europe and in UK as well.
And I just want to go back to, we talked about the increase in candidate pool. Like this stuff's going to be super important, right? The more candidates there are, the harder this becomes to do as a small business.
100%, yeah. So one of the most common automations we're seeing running through the platform at the moment is actually candidate focused and capturing that information. There's going to be an influx of candidates coming in. We all know that. More people are unemployed than ever before at the moment. When I say ever, in the modern era anyway, there's more unemployment than ever. So all of these candidates that are coming at you, automation really is key to not only just capturing that data, but being able to analyze and nurture that data and then have an outcome out the back of that. So we're not covering it off in a demo today, but one thing I would just like to highlight before Chris gets into the demo is you could do things like capturing that information via a survey could actually become a knockout question. So part of automation is you can update or set the data in a shortlist. So let's say you've got multiple applicants. Well, the shortlist can actually be updated. You can auto reject people if, for example, they said, I don't have eligibility to work EU, or I don't have this specific requirement that I need to work in Utah, or whatever it needs to be. So you can actually utilize a system that way, and think of it as kind of like your recruiter's digital assistant or a recruiterless process in a way. The automation really does grow so much efficiency in businesses. Yeah, great point, Toby. Cool, Chris, yeah, you can jump in. So the way to think about automation and the way it works in its simplest form, and the way that you should think about how you should apply it, is if this, then that. So if this, and in this case, we have an example of a placement finishing. So if that placement finishes, well, we can take a bunch of actions off the back of that. I've already highlighted a couple of them, but we can do things like send an NPS survey to a client. We can also send an NPS survey to a candidate to make sure that both of those have had that great experience that we're trying to drive. And then as we dig in further, we can send maybe a candidate the latest 5 jobs email. So one thing that Herefish does is it can understand the jobs that are in your system that are currently open and that you need help filling, and you can build a workflow to actually advertise those to your candidates as well. Moving in further, so we can update things like the placement status to completed, so we have healthy data moving forward. We can also update the candidate status to available, as I said. Well, we can copy that available date from the placement end date as well. And further to that, if we wanted to make our talent pools more consistent, we could also copy placement job titles to be the candidate's new job title in the system as well. And then off the back of that, we can also do other things, like we can make sure that people are notified of everything that's happening of above. No one will ever not know what's happening with automation in the system. And we can also do things like set bullhorn tasks so that we can maybe have a follow-up or a check-in with both the client and the candidate of this placement, say 2 days after this placement finished. So one more click, Chris, what we've really got here is a bunch of automations that have taken place, but they're all fully aligned with the 3 pillars. So we're creating an incredible experience by capturing feedback and making sure that candidates are always being fed the right information. From a data health perspective, we're making sure that field data in Bullhorn is always where it needs to be. And from a productivity perspective, making sure that everyone's aware of everything that's happening in automation, just like an FYI, but also driving best practice workflows into the system itself to make sure that I need to achieve that task today because it's the best time to do that within this recruitment workflow. So really, it's just making sure that everything's front of mind. The best way to achieve this as well, and this is what really resonates, is this is through clicks, not code. Gone are the days where you need to go to professional services and ask for custom development to happen in Bullhorn. All of this is achievable through a user-friendly interface where you can really build these as you need to, again, through clicks, not code. You can adapt quickly. 2020 was an unbelievable example on how automation, people that invested early in the early adopters in automation, really saw the ability to adapt quickly for the first time because their market completely changed and the industry completely changed back in March. And those that had automation in place really could respond real time to the changing needs of the business. So one example there, with a lot of our customers that we saw, of those customers that already had it, was they started to ask COVID health related questions in surveys. So for the active workers that they had on site, a client is being able to check in with them on a daily, weekly, bi-weekly basis, however often it needs to be, and asking the right questions about their health. Have you traveled in any of these locations? Are you showing any of these symptoms? Have you helped or nursed anyone that has been showing symptoms? So being able to keep on top of that information for their clients was critical for them to be able to stay on top of actually holding on to a lot of those active workers as well. You can solidify your processes. So it's really about making sure that automation drives powerful workflows to reduce human error, or actually completing that task list that's too long for any one individual to complete. And then thirdly, it's really about accelerating the value. So when I said you don't need any custom code, you can deploy automations within minutes. And you're going to see Chris deploy an automation during this demo and how easy it is to do that. Being able to deploy these within minutes rather than days or months, and these super high costs of professional services as well. So with that, I hope that set the scene for what Chris is going to take us through. And I'm now going to hand over. Oh, no, I'm not. Apologies, I'm way too far ahead of myself. There's one last thing I want to talk about. So this is the power of automation. When we look at our customers that don't have automation, or just before they start to implement versus when they have it, customers go from, on average, an 87.5% of applicants don't get engaged with. They fall into a black hole, and that's not creating a great experience for their candidates or their customers. About 60% of your database is normally what we would deem as old or inaccurate. So that's normally over 12 months old with no real tangible data in there. And about 20% of your day is what we say is being worked on unproductive or busy work. So that's the kind of tasks where you're doing it because you have to, but you shouldn't need to with automation in place. And if we flip that to once you have automation in place, all of our customers really love some of these stats. So now 100% of your applicants are engaged with. Automation runs 100% of the time. So if you set up your automations to respond to every applicant, it's going to engage with them every single time. So at least applicants know that you've heard them, and they know that you're aware of them. You can do more advanced things on that, but that's not something we're covering in this slide. Also, 100% of your data is now going to be actionable. So I'm not saying that all 100% of candidates will update a new resume or provide more information, but even those that continually ignore you, you can automate a task to mark them as inactive or to archive them. Well, that's now actionable data that you can go and take place with there as well. And 100% of your day should now be focused and spent on high value tasks, which really is building relationships, being on the phone with your clients and being on the phone with your candidates. And with that,
and
I
Ben,
can now hand over.
Sorry,
Ted.
Ben, the left-hand side, I was just going to say, adoption seems like it's going to be an issue there. You know, the candidates aren't engaged with, they're probably being engaged with outside of the system. The old inaccurate data, people aren't going to use it. The right-hand side, if for a growing business, knowing that they can get their team to adopt it, because a lot of the boring, busy work is done by a robot effectively, that's going to make a big difference, right, to new people coming in and having that actionable data.
Yeah, precisely. Cool. I've teased the demo long enough now. Let's hand over to it.
I actually want to make one more point here, and Ben alluded to it. Especially in the small business side of we're considering small business, white glove approaches is really important, right? And with applying the type of automation we're talking about here, it really frees up the time so we can devote it back into meaningful interactions, right? To build that rapport, to help support our candidates and clients. It's a big part of what we do here, is to make sure we free up our users so we can focus on meaningful interactions. So I am going to get into the demo. I'm going to stop sharing my my camera just for bandwidth issues on this one, so that we can focus in on it. So we'll be back here in a second when we get into the QA. All right. Let's go ahead and click into our demo. All right, what you're looking at here, this is our Herefish admin screen. As you can see, we are in Bullhorn. To access Herefish is very simple. All you'll need to do is click on the menu tab, select Herefish, and this will pull you into our production instance. I'm going to go through 3 personas. All right, so we're going to talk about the Herefish admin. Then we will talk about what a candidate or client might experience, and then we'll give you a window into what your sales reps and recruiters will see. Now, your automation strategy, right? That is your whole corporation or your whole entire org should be influencing that strategy, right? You guys should be working and collaborating to figure out where can we remove some of these bottlenecks. Now, the people that are building these automations, though, that is typically a dedicated resource. And that is super important, especially in small business. You want to have an automation expert. The person that could be an automation expert, it could be a sales manager, it could be a recruiting manager, it could be a Bullhorn admin. But at the end of the day, you need to have one person who's really owning this and building these out, and then working with the rest of the organization to make sure that we apply these automations. All right, to add an automation, it's pretty simple. We're going to click this Add Automation button. And you'll notice that we have a couple options here. The first one is Start from Scratch. So the current entities that we're working in are candidate-based, sales contacts, submissions, placements, and jobs. So multiple entities that we can apply different automations in. You'll notice, though, under this section, we have a blueprint. This blueprint section has a library of pre-built automations. These pre-built automations have a lot of our best practices that we've learned across our whole entire customer base baked in. And we are updating this library on a regular basis. The way that we've kind of categorized this library is, focusing on pre-hire. So this is something before somebody, is hired, whether we want to market out to candidates or we want to engage somebody who is in an interview to ensure we drive those interview reminders. It's important to note that if we are engaging our candidates and clients, that we're driving that via an email or text message, okay? If we wanted to drill into post-hire, for example, maybe wanted to send a happy birthday or ensure that we have a frictionless onboarding and new hire workflow, you can simply use this tool to spin that up. Or sales. Sales is one that we've seen, and Toby alluded to it quite a bit. We were in a candidate-dominated market for a while, but the past 6 months, we've seen the amount of sales contact automations, whether we're engaging current customers or lapsed customers, skyrocket, right? So at the end of the day, you will see these libraries, increase. You'll see these libraries add more blueprints. Just for the mere fact that we're learning from our customers. We want to make sure you have best practices in hand, and that you can use these either to draw inspiration from or actually just straight out of the box. For example, if I wanted to have some sort of reoccurring client survey, if I wanted to spin this up really easy, all I needed to do is click on my blueprint. We already have our audience built, which is our existing customers, and then we have a full automation that we can just hit save and you're ready to rock and roll. So I'm going to jump into a candidate-based automation. This one specifically is going to be based off of a re-engagement campaign. So let's just say, for example, we didn't want we had to talk to a candidate, or we wanted to nurture some of our candidates because we might not have an open job from them currently. So this is a really good example, and I would state that this type of automation is really close to the dollar, right? One of my customers said recently, for every dollar that I spend on Herefish, it saves me $2 on the job board, because we are nurturing that current ATS. We're able to provide some metrics, which we'll get into here in a little bit. We're able to drive warmer conversations. So we can turn that ATS, whether you have 5,000 candidates, 100,000 candidates, anywhere in between, we can turn that ATS into one of your top sources for placement. If I were to click directly into this is our audience builder right here. This is a fully integrated tool with Bullhorn. We're able to either generate these one-time lists or have this continuously updated. So as soon as a candidate or a client or some sort of metric has hit this list criteria, will automatically be pulled into the system. For those who have used engagement systems in the past that aren't integrated, you have to copy down lists and move it. That doesn't have to happen anymore. Herefish automatically will pull that in. We're listening for these changes, these events. Once that criteria is met, we'll pull it into the solution. Now, this re-engagement campaign, it's going to couple in a few different things. It's going to highlight our data health automations. It's going to highlight our engagement automations and our productivity automation, all within one workflow. So what we're looking for here is we're actually looking for all candidates that have an active status, a new lead status, or available status. But we're also going to check against to make sure that they don't have a submission. And let's make sure that they don't have a submission more than a year, right? Let's look to see if this person make sure this person's not currently placed or in a placement setting. And let's see how, let's apply more than 12 months against that record as well. And then we're going to look to see if there's any activity on the note. So last note, more than 6 months. So this is truly looking at candidates that we haven't spoken to in a very long time, if ever, that aren't currently submitted or on a placement. And the first step we're going to take in this regard is a data automation. So, if I were to click this plus button, these are kind of the actions and steps that we can add. So we can add wait times, branch, we can send emails, text, surveys, notification, tasks, add note, and update candidate. So these are kind of the actions we could take. But since our audience is really drilling into those candidates that aren't necessarily active in our system, the first step we're going to take is update this to inactive or passive, allowing our statuses now to live in a more dynamic state, right? So when I run a search in Bullhorn, I can actually see out of my candidates who's active versus who's passive. It's really important. And then we're going to send them down a path of engagement. So in this particular case, we're sending out an email. We have the capability to send in plain text emails, or in this case, it's an HTML-based email. So we can kind of put our own branding against it, giving you the easy tool to kind of build these different engagements. Now, we have a couple options on who we can send this on behalf of. We can send it on a candidate owner. We can send it on a submission or placement owner. We even give you the capability of sending it from somebody that isn't necessarily a user in the ATS. So you really get the flexibility to ensure that you're sending this on behalf of a real human being. It's sent from your brand, and then all responses would go back to the person that you indicated you wanted it to go back to. This is considered a drip campaign. So we have a wait step of 3 weeks, and then we give you the capability to do some A/B testing, which is really great. So, A/B testing is there to make sure that we're testing a certain metric in an email. Okay. For example, if we wanted to test open rate, that's really based off the subject line at the end of the day. So in this case, we're going to take 500 contacts to test. We'll alternate between A and B, and the winning email will then be sent to the remainder contacts. If I wanted to maybe highlight more click rate, if there's an actual button that we wanted to highlight, you can do that, or even job view rate, which really helps us make sure that we're looking at the metric of is this job a good match, or are they actually exhibiting job seeking behavior? And in this case, we add another wait time of 3 weeks, and then we're going to send them a survey. So this is pretty intuitive, but I really want to state this. A really good drip campaign really consists of a lot of gives. So you want to make sure in the content that you're providing, you're giving something like, hey, here's some interview tips or job seeking tips. You want to give, so then you can eventually ask the question. And in this particular case, we want to ask, since they're inactive candidates or candidates that we have never spoken to, we want to ask some questions via our survey. And I have the example right here. This is an example of the email that we've sent across. And we want to really get an idea what roles this candidate might be interested in. So we're going to ask, hey, what type of roles are you interested in? I'm interested in web developer role, which will take them directly to our jobs page on your website. We want to make sure we're driving them to that website. So not only are they going to take this survey with us, that they can start looking at other positions that we might be marketing to. In this case, we're asking when are you available? So we're getting a really good key metric on out of this passive database, who's active and when are they available. We can even ask for them to update their resume. So this is considered a candidate refresh survey, where we have an automation sitting in the background that's going through all of your passive candidates. We're grabbing these metrics. Not only grabbing them, we're also tracking all activity. So if I've completed my survey here, and I were to view any other job on my website, we're going to capture that information, and we're going to be able to wrap that into what is known as an engagement score. Okay, that engagement score is then driven back into your recruiter's hands. So I've kind of gone through the admin perspective. I showed you what the candidate would see, but from your recruiter's standpoint, if I click on my candidate list, you'll notice there's a HereFish score here, and there's a score that basically goes from 0 to 100. The higher the score, the more active the candidate is. The lower the score or less active they are, it will start walking itself back. All right. So let's go ahead and click here on Kevin Jones, who's a passive candidate, for example, and we can go ahead and view what the recruiter might see. So like I said earlier, that survey, that integrates to the field level. So if we're asking questions like data availability, maybe new address, desired locations, we can fill all that information. Ben alluded to it earlier, knockout questions. So if you wanted us to fill out, different information around the type of jobs they're looking for, we can do that. And that could be set as a bit of criteria. We can also write all that information back to a note if that's something you want us to do. Vast majority of my clients, though, typically click on the HereFish tab, which provides them a little bit of metrics around all the activity for this specific candidate. So you can see here, Kevin, for example, he's opened one email in the last 30 days. His engagement score is 76, which is about medium, right? We can show you list memberships. We can show you what automations he's in. We can even show you our semantic job match. So jobs that he currently matches for that are open in our system. But to really get an idea of the activity for this candidate, you can basically see all the emails that we've sent, all the open clicks, the page views. Like I said earlier, we want to drive them back to our website so we can track them, but we also get a perspective of a lot of the things that they're viewing for versus maybe some of the stuff we're marketing to them. So in this case, we can even drill into the type of jobs that Kevin's looking at. giving us insight into his job seeking behavior, and in turn allows us to have a better conversation with the candidate, get them matched quicker and through that pipelining process. This is true on the contact side as well. We do have our HereFish engagement score. The only difference is we don't care if our contacts are looking at our jobs or not. That you can track that information, but typically in a marketing standpoint or engagement with our current customers or prospects, we kind of want to drive them to actionable pages like, hey, this is about us, or these are the services that we offer, and we highlight that in that HereFish tab on the contact record. Okay, so I kind of brought you through, like I said, one of our most used re-engagement campaigns. This isn't a blueprint. I actually took the blueprint, tweaked it a little bit to make it my own, and was able to probably get this up and running in less than 10 minutes. So let's go back and take a quick gander at some of the other stuff that we can do. We do give you metrics from a dashboard standpoint. So you'll be able to see your overall dashboard, your automated actions, what those are broken out to. You can filter by a couple of different days, 7, 30, 90, or custom. We can break into candidates, sales, or contractors, overall performance as well. One thing from the contractor side that's really, really great, it's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to calculate your redeployment rate. At HereFish, we do give you the redeployment rate here, and then it's really helpful to get that so that you can see what actions might be contributing to that redeployment rate and where you might need to make some changes and tweaks. I'm going to jump into surveys as well, just the nature of our dashboards. Because not only do we give you your metrics from everything that you're doing today, right? But we're going to give you some metrics from specific emails being sent or specific surveys being sent. I'm going to pull up my GDPR option here to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. So in this specific survey, you'll see that we have a set of metrics on top, right? So we're going to give you the start rate, the completed rate, email sent, and your email open rate specifically. You can view these a bit more granular from a specific response that you've gotten from a candidate. You can test this survey as well. But right here, this is where you actually would build your survey. So you can, if I hit this plus button, the options that you kind of get are single line of text, you have choice answer, multiple choice, your NPS, so asking NPS. We kind of break out rating itself because maybe you want to ask a rating question outside of NPS. Your date availability statement and upload resume. I would state this. Let's say, for example, you were to ask an NPS question. If we were to get a good rating, like an 8, 9, or 10, for example, we can now send them a reference, like maybe a referral or reference email asking them to either give us a testimonial or ask them, our candidates, if they have any additional friends looking for a position. So we can have trigger events off of a lot of the answers that we get from our survey. So allowing you to really automate some of that knockout or automate capturing those different referral sources. In this case, since this is our GDPR survey, just pulling up how we write back. So as you can see here, we've asked the question, and this is true for the CCPA or any one of our customers in the States looking to adopt consent modules today. We can go ahead and have an answer and write it back to that consent module directly in Bullhorn, so we capture that forever. So that just kind of gives you an overview of the surveys, how they work. I'm going to navigate back to this automations page and kind of go over a couple of things I mentioned earlier. So we talked about our blueprints, right? We talked about how we're updating these blueprints on a regular basis, okay? Well, we aren't just going to update them. We want to be proactive in the way that we support you. This is a system that allows you to support yourself, gives you the flexibility to build a lot of stuff out. But when we come across to best practice, we were going to suggest that to you in the terms of your business. So if I click on this map view, this will give me literally everything that I'm doing today in an automation setting, okay? And it allows us, and this is my demo, so it has quite a bit of automations in it. But at the end of the day, it categorizes them in data health, talent pools, process, sending interview reminders, new hire. If I scroll down a little bit further, you're noticing right here that we can even suggest, in this case, it's a new at-risk customers or a lapsed customers automation. which is really one of the more popular ones people use on the sales contact side. So, when you're using this system, you will get the benefit of some machine learning. You will get the benefit of us driving that back to you and ensuring that you're getting the most out of this system. So one more thing before we get into real questions, I wanted to kind of highlight how you are supported. So, and high level, really get into implementation. So how implementation works is you will be implemented, you'll be trained on this system, and you'll be taught how to get automations live. You will get automations live on Go Live, and then it's on your firm to be building and maintaining these moving forward. That being said, we really want to make sure you're supported through this process. And we have in-chat support, which is really great, right? So if you have a question, you can obviously call us or email us, but 99% of my customers use this chat feature where then you can drill into a real automation expert, ask them the questions, you can book time with them. And we have a great set of different accesses here. So help articles, you can send your HereFish requests, for features in here. There's tutorials and videos. So it's really a system that makes sure that you have at your fingertips help when needed. And it's intuitive enough to really allow you to start building these right away. You don't necessarily need to be a real technical person. So just wanted to cover that. And then we're going to jump into some questions here if there's no other comments.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so Q&A is open. Please do drop your questions in. I'll try and keep up with the feed as they all come feeding in. But we've had a couple of questions already. So first one, just to kick off, is does a newly updated resume captured from a survey automatically, does it parse as existing to the candidate profile?
The answer to that is yes. Yeah, and that's a good question about the parser in general. So, and two things. HereFish only works with known contacts. So when we ask them for a resume, we'll load it back in the terms of that person. Another thing too is if you're using an advanced parser like Dijkstra or a text kernel, we'll use that parsing service to send the resume to.
Cool. I've had one here. This sounds more like social posting, so I don't think it's going to be a yes. But can you set up automations that post to LinkedIn?
We do not have a posting agent in this tool. Our goal here is to do known contact marketing, and then we drive that through all the way to the redeployment of the contractor. There are a host of different really inexpensive tools that allow you to kind of handle the posting, and that's the majority of our customers use today.
Cool. There's been quite a few questions around cost of the products. Just to highlight that, get in contact with your relationship manager, your account manager, or your known sales rep to talk about pricing for the product. It's not really something we wanted to cover off on a webinar because lots of factors come into play there as well, depending on the size you are as an organization. So just to anyone else that's curious about pricing, please do reach out to your relationship manager to find out more.
And anybody that has asked that question will proactively get someone to reach out to those too.
Yeah, we're tracking all the questions, so we'll know who it is that needs to know that. Just mark that off as answered. Okay, so
that's a good question, actually, from Greg. Is the pricing by number of contacts in your database? No, that's your traditional marketing. Like, we'll give you your cost. You'll know exactly how much you're going to be spending with us in a given calendar year. There's no variable cost there. It's a good question.
Okay, we've got a question here from James who has said, does GDPR automation set up the LinkedIn RSC? I can take that one if you want. So LinkedIn RSC does require consent to be present in Bullhorn, and HereFish can track consent for people and set different consent types. So the answer to that is yes. If consent's present in Bullhorn, RSC will work. So that is a way for you to capture that data from your candidate for whatever purpose you use to capture that data, whether that be straight consent or whether that be legitimate business interest. And from there, you can track consent on that person. So therefore, it will connect. So great question there, James. Next one up. So pricing, that's all good.
Sam, no, I'm not saying that. We have plenty permanent. So the question is, are you saying this is more a contracted tool opposed to a perm tool? We have plenty of customers in the perm space that use this for engagement. Their focus though would be more of that example we went through with the email campaigns and the outreach and interview reminders and things like that.
Cool. So another question we got here is, so what does implementation look like?
That's a great question. So currently right now, implementation's handled by our SI partners. And Toby and Ben, keep me honest here. I want to make sure I hit them all, but our current SI partners we support are Kylo, Newberry, 1218 will be supported here shortly. We have Tonic, and then there's one more I'm forgetting, Ben.
Barclay Jones.
Barclay
Yeah.
Jones.
And RecMate in APAC as well.
Yeah, and RecMate
Yeah.
and APAC. Good job.
Perfect. So that one's answered. Okay, yeah, it's a good question here around using Herefish as from the stance of attracting and engaging clients. So Marcus has said new clients here, but I guess the first thing to highlight here is, again, it needs to be a known contact in the system already. So it's more around nurturing your client or your prospect side of your contact database. And yeah, absolutely, you can still apply all of these same processes, same engagements, same journeys that you want to take this through to reach out to maybe the clients that you haven't spoken to, or the ones you've had on the system for a while now that you've never really got much engagement with, and just sending off some of those campaigns just to really keep your brand top of mind. So when you do lift the phone and try and get hold of them, they're actually going to recognize your company name a lot quicker than maybe one where you haven't really done that proactive reach out as well.
It's a good point, Ben. We also see customers on the prospect side use this for event marketing, even a virtual market. So like if you were to upload a list and set the source to, Herefish, or set a note to the record nurturing, we can send them down an event path, both pre and post show. So it's good questions.
So Steve has said, does Herefish replace the email template capability? Herefish seems easier than teeing up a template.
I don't know if it would replace your template, but we would suggest any mass emailing to go through Herefish and have that handled by somebody who's controlling your brand or controlling the content that goes out. So that's step one. You'll have a better deliverability rate doing that. But step two, you also get visibility into that deliverability rate, the view rate. We cookie those candidates and those clients. So I would very much suggest that, we're never going to get out of mass emailing. I think everyone knows that, but I would start pivoting towards more of those engagements from a Herefish type tool or an automation tool like this.
Okay, so one here is, can you include images in a survey? Are the surveys sent as links in an email that direct, or is the entire survey captured? I'll take this one. So from the way I'm reading the question, it sounds a little bit disconnected, but when you send a survey, you will send it either via an email or via a text message. So with email, you'll be able to just drop that link straight in to a call to action button in that email, like Chris shown. They'll click it, and then the survey is actually going to be hosted over your website. So there'll be an integration between Herefish and your website, simple lines of code. So whoever built your website for you will be able to drop those lines of code into the header, just like the way Google Analytics works, super simple. From there, every time you build a survey, you're going to point them to a destination on your website that you want the survey to overlay. The benefit of that is once they've completed the survey, they're now left on your website. So if it's a candidate that's not actively working for you and you're capturing more data about them, leave them over your jobs. If it's a client, you may want to leave them over your services. So for any reason, when you send people to your website for a survey, they will be left on a page where you decide where that's going to be. So any images in the email are actually part of the email content rather than part of the survey itself. Perfect. We've got a question here around semantic match, Chris. Do you want to talk about, seeming as you come from that industry to start with, and the sort of thing we're doing with the product as well?
Yeah, it's super important to know that this is just a match system. It's not a search system. So it's not going to replace your users going in there and running a semantic search and getting responses. But what this gives you the capability to do is to set a set of criteria that allows us to match your candidates to the job. So if a job were to open, we match it to your candidate list, and then we can start marketing out pretty quickly to that candidate list open jobs that they currently have. How it works currently right now, it will, to answer your question, it's very easy to set up. It could be set up in in your project. The system's pretty much just point and click to be able to self-service that. But there's four facets of matching that you have the capability of tweaking those matches. So maybe you only want to match certain jobs, or there's a certain distance, or you want to add certain specialties or categories to that match. All of it's self-service through the tool. It's fairly simple. And if you need more help during that, our support team can definitely help.
Great. Next question. Do you see Herefish as an alternative to HubSpot as a marketing tool?
Yes, I do. I think I'm HubSpot certified. I love HubSpot. It's a good tool. It's a good tool for a software company. It really only looks at the opportunity and a contact. In our world, we need to be able to look at that submission, the placement, know what a resume is, know what a job is. We need to make sure that we can say this is a candidate versus a contact. So I do see this as an alternative to HubSpot around email marketing for sure. We do have customers that will utilize both services. And what they do in that particular regard is they use HubSpot for really top of the funnel, not converting unknown contacts to known contacts. And then Herefish takes over from there.
Perfect. James has followed up on a previous question around how it works with legitimate interest. I can cover this one as well. So in no way are we advising you on how to track your consent, whether that be legitimate interest or GDPR. So just want to call that one out. But what we can do with a platform is when a candidate registers, for example, when they hit the system, you could have an automation that maybe sets a temporary consent in place. So that consent purpose may be for legitimate business interest. So if your workflow or your process for GDPR is that you will track someone under legitimate interest for X number of days while you gain consent, then you can actually automate a consent type of legitimate business interest in there for say 30 days. And then after 30 days, that will expire. So then from there, you'll have processes to capture consent while you're working under legitimate interest. So yeah, automation can get really complex and really, really get into the nuances of how you can do your GDPR in the way that suits you as a business and the workflows that you've put in place. So yeah, absolutely. Maybe reach out for a demo on this one so we can really get under the hood, but you can really automate the legitimate interest side of it, not just the actual consent for GDPR side of it as well.
That's a really good point, Ben. I'd say GDPR has been a big driver for us internationally for sure. This is a good engine for it. I did want to answer Colin's question here about, hey, candidate engagement, this is great. I see that as a tool, but we're struggling with attracting new clients. And I get that. Really, at the end of the day, it's down to the content that you're going to be able to provide. And Colin, I would say right now, the best content that you can provide is user-generated content. We're seeing a lot of our customers that are coupling UGC in their content out saying, hey, these are our testimonial pages, for example. This is how well we're doing right now with our clients. Give us an actionable button here to schedule time with you, for example, giving them an easy means to convert that into a time for them to schedule with a sales rep. That's what you need to look at. We also have a couple partners in the space. So Great Recruiters really allows us to capture a lot of that, and they integrate with us. And then 3DIQ also integrates with us as well. That allows us to do a bit more skill marketing. I should say that skill marketing is in beta and it should be released here pretty soon. But those are the two things that we've seen some success with on the client side for sure.
And to loop that back, Chris, we talked about HubSpot a minute ago, top of the funnel. But if you have a solution that automates that collection of the testimonials and identifying who is giving you a positive NPS score, that kind of full loop makes a big difference, right?
That's a good point. That's exactly right. It's about your brand awareness on the web, right? And a Google review at 5 stars is great, right? Like if I were to go through a majority, it's just you're not pushing a lot of people towards the Google reviews or the Glassdoors. We want to capture the good and send them there, and that'll help convert. Yeah,
great example. Another question from Steve. Steve's getting busy with us, but it's all good. So does Herefish handle the self-identifying aspects of EEOC, like veteran status, etc.? Some clients require us to ask that. Yeah, so if we go back to what I was saying around knockout questions and that style of information you can capture, well, you can apply those question-based surveys at any stage of your process. So if someone is applying or someone's even just registering with you, there's no job involved at this stage. Maybe they're just registering with you on your website. You have the ability to synchronize that data into Bullhorn. As soon as that candidate hits the system, they could get a welcome message that's from Herefish that's going to have maybe some of those questions or qualifying questions in there as well, just to help them more fulfill their profile. So you can definitely capture some of that data in there and have that flow straight back to Bullhorn, so you can identify them immediately as well.
Great question.
Perfect. So we're coming up on time. I feel like we're in a good spot. There's another big overarching question here around who should be responsible in our small business to actually look after automation. Chris, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So it's really important. I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. You want to have a dedicated resource. Obviously, the whole organization will influence and benefit from automation, but you really need to have somebody driving this on your side. Okay. Like that's going to help you run a successful implementation. That will help you stay agile and allow you to build automations, either when you need to communicate out fast to all your contractors, or you just need to scale if you were to, add new users, or if you were to change a field. So it is typically a power user, and that persona, it needs to be somebody who understands your process. Doesn't have to be a technical person, but someone who understands your process and where those bottlenecks might be. We do see, though, obviously technical people use this tool quite a bit, or your admins of Bullhorn could utilize it as well. Doesn't have to be that person. The more they know about the process, the easier it would be to kind of build this out.
Cool, perfect. Another question here from James. So has anyone had success to gain data on diversity and inclusion? I think it's a similar answer to the one I gave around EEOC, where you're really going to be capturing this data, and not all of that information is going to be in a CV. And if it's not something you want to capture over phone, but maybe part of that process of screening questions is you do need to capture that data, then that could be another place to definitely capture that. Hopefully that answers that one. There's one more question that we've got here from Don. Don, I don't really understand the question completely. We're going to reach out to you directly on this one. It's just around copying a candidate ID to a submission record. Just so you're aware, so the way the system works is once a candidate's in the submission, we can do anything over that and automate that submission. But I'm just trying to work out what you mean by actually copying a candidate ID into a submission, whether that's actually you need the number to be in there or whether you want an action to be created. But we'll make sure we reach out and cover that one off with you directly. And I think we're at time. That was the last question that was outstanding. I think we're good.
Awesome. Thanks to all the presenters today. Like they all said, we'll be following up with you all individually with recordings and answers to your questions. So talk soon, and thanks again to everyone.